we're ready. Thank you very much, Kayla. Good afternoon. Welcome to good afternoon and welcome to the House Economic Matters Committee. Today we're having two bill hearings. It is March the 2nd, and we will start with Bill 442, Delegate Rosenberg. I ask everyone listening to please, number one, if you're not a member, please do not enter the chat. Two, keep yourself muted at all times unless you've asked to be muted and you're testifying. And with that, Delegate Rosenberg, are you there? All right, so we're having one of these days again, are we? We have a representative of the Prince George's County delegation available.
I am here, Mr. Chair. It's my understanding I'm sorry, it's a bill before my bill?
Unfortunately, that bill presenter is not available. So we go next in line, which is your bill, Delegate Tolles.
Okay.
Are you prepared to go forward?
I just need a few moments. I'm just trying to connect to my committee. I just need a few moments. I thought that I was going second, so I am so sorry.
No, you were going second. It is not your problem. We will give you a few moments. Now I'm going to have my committee folks reach out and see where Delegate Rosenberg is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're having apparently 2 days of bad luck when it comes to getting our presenters here on time. Trying to be the kinder and gentler ECM, but apparently the world is working against me. So colleagues, just give us a few minutes. Hopefully we'll hear back from Delegate Tolles in a few minutes. Take a 5-minute breather.
It's like 10,000 souls when all I got need is a knife. It's reading the man of my dreams, and I knitting his beautiful wife. And isn't it ironic? Don't you think? A little too. Yeah, I really do think it's like rain.
All right, I've just been informed Delegate Rosenberg should be logging on in a few moments. So we will start with him. We will give Delegate Tolles. I know she is new to testify in front of this committee as well as new to Annapolis. So we will let her go second. I don't want her to feel like she has to rush. Delegate Tolles, if you hear me, take your time. I know you're new, so we're trying to give you some time, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I truly appreciate you.
No worries. We don't want to rush you. Delegate, there he is. Delegate Rosenberg.
Thank you. Appreciate I was just at a subcommittee chair meeting that I was chairing in HGO, but here we are. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to House Bill 442, which would give Baltimore City the authority to regulate certain aspects of tobacco use in the city. The people coming behind me can speak to the urgency of the regulatory authority that they wish to have. We all know the harm that tobacco products do, that they cause for our youngsters. And we have taken action on that as a body. I wish to speak to the issue of preemption, and as best I can, to make it clear that we, as the General Assembly, have the authority to decide whether or not a local jurisdiction is preempted on this issue or on any other issue. The Court of Appeals has held that under existing law, local governments are preempted from taking action, from regulating on many aspects, most aspects, or clearly certain aspects of the sale of tobacco products. But the court's holding, the court's decision is based upon its interpretation of the statutes that we have passed. So we clearly have the authority to modify the existing preemption protocols and the existing extent to which locals are preempted. There is no question that we have the authority to do what this bill would do. It is a policy judgment for us to make as the legislature as to whether we wish to continue to preempt locals from taking action in these areas of public health. Okay, that is the policy question before us. In the past, we have learned from what local governments have done in the area of tobacco controls. The one that comes to my mind is smoking in restaurants and in bars, that local governments took action, prohibited certain activities, and then we, as a legislature, made it a statewide prohibition. Okay. That is the point that I wish to make, because others coming behind me can speak in greater detail and with greater expertise as to the policy reasons for giving local governments the authority, giving Baltimore City, not plural, Baltimore City, the authority to regulate. We have done it before. There's an urgent need when it comes to our children, and it is clearly within the power of this General Assembly, starting with this committee, and the bill is cross-filed in the Senate, to give a local government this authority. I urge a favorable report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now have Brooke Torton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Brooke Torton. I'm an attorney. I work in public health law at the University of Maryland School of Law. I believe the committee is going to hear at length from officials representing Baltimore City on how this has impacted them specifically, but I want to speak to the larger issue, which is home rule power in Maryland. So our Constitution, unlike many other states, has allocated some autonomy to local governments. So this has effectively permitted the counties in Baltimore City to enact and enforce local law for decades. Tobacco is really just one of many public health areas that Baltimore has been able to regulate. And so effectively, this court decision that we'll hear some more about, it has plucked tobacco out of a lengthy list of public health topics and said, no, locals, you can no longer enforce in this area. So just to name a few, Baltimore City and other jurisdictions have already successfully regulated, and differently from one another, things like health and safety at both marinas, pools, beaches, food services, tanning facilities, tattoos, piercing facilities, and the list goes on. And so this court decision in 2013, it was a limitation on local home rule power. Tobacco is just one public health topic cherry picked out of the mix. And so we may hear from opposition confusion over what this court decision actually did, but it is unavoidable to conclude that it has prevented locals from continuing to regulate enforcing laws relating to the sale of tobacco products. So how do we know this? One, Baltimore City will indicate that they used to enforce certain laws, but cannot because of this decision. Two, as an attorney in the state working with county offices of law on tobacco issues statewide, those county attorneys have also reached the same conclusion. And third, the Office of the Attorney General on a previous iteration of this bill has submitted a letter of support indicating the same. For those reasons, I would ask the committee for a favorable report and to restore this authority to Baltimore City, who will demonstrate the difficulty it has caused for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Kobe Little. I do not see Reverend Little in the waiting room, so we'll go to Natasha Mayhew.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Crosby, members of the committee. Natasha May here on behalf of House Bill 442 in support. I do want to thank Delegate Rosenberg for putting in this bill. It is a priority for the Baltimore City administration. This is an issue we have supported both statewide and locally for years. Tobacco use is associated with some of the highest rates of morbidity and mortality in Baltimore City. And in Baltimore City, we do have the largest number of licensed cigarette retailers of any jurisdiction in Maryland. That's 1,600. And the prevalence of tobacco use in Baltimore City is one of the highest in the state. We are only able to address tobacco sales to minors, although we received several requests to investigate sales concerning illegal tax stamps and sales of unpackaged cigarettes. The enactment of this bill would give us the ability to better coordinate with other local and state agencies, as we were able to do in 2008 before the Altitas decision, but haven't been able to do since then. With increased authority, we would be able to address certain public health issues surrounding the sales of tobacco, as well as public safety issues, as we see many complaints regarding tobacco sales involve also public safety concerns. So 2 provisions of the city's health code were invalidated by the Altitas decision, and that's Title 12, Subtitle 2, the sale of unpackaged cigarettes, and Subtitle 6, flavored tobacco wrappings. So this bill would give us the express permission to allow the city to regulate the packaging and sale of tobacco products locally. It would also address the issues we are seeing with the current bifurcated system, where local governments closest to the issues related to the sales have been unable to do so because of the Altitas decision. And with that, I request a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Little. I see that you just joined. Looks like you're still connecting. Nope, looks like you're all the way through. Can you hear me? You're up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Kobe Little, and I represent the Baltimore City branch of the NAACP. And I'm here today to urge a favorable report on this legislation. We know that tobacco companies have used many tools to lure children into smoking cigarettes and to using tobacco products. And we believe that Baltimore City ought to have the ability to put in place laws and regulations that will protect the public health of the residents of Baltimore City. It's time is long overdue for the end of the predatory practices of the tobacco industry. This legislation will allow the local government in Baltimore to institute remedies to the issues related to tobacco products and how these companies put them forward. So we support preemption for Baltimore, local control of tobacco legislation, and we urge a favorable report for House Bill 477.
Thank you, Reverend Little. Now we'll go to the unfavorables. Bruce Bariano. All right, I no longer see him. He was here. We'll go to Fred Parsons. Mr. Parsons, I can see you are off mute. Can you turn your camera on? Okay, you went back on to mute, sir. Okay, we'll go to Sarah Price.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members of the committee. My name is Sarah Price, here on behalf of the Maryland Retailers Association in opposition to this bill. We have opposed it in previous years, and we continue to do so because, frankly, we just don't think that it's appropriate for local jurisdictions to create their own laws on this matter. Tobacco regulation should remain at the state level. We understand the desire to be able to respond locally to bad actors who are operating illegally, but we have concerns about the overall impact that this could have on the business community. As we've shared before, multi-jurisdictional businesses struggle when they are forced to operate under a patchwork of local laws, particularly in cities. Our membership has been impacted by this many times over with local environmental rules and most recently with COVID-19 regulations. And our members struggled to get clear information about borders and zip codes in an effort to determine whether they fall within the geographic limits of local rule. Local authorization can also unfairly impact competition by suddenly and seemingly arbitrarily imposing new restrictions on established businesses in certain areas while leaving other markets untouched. The fiscal analysis predicts that this bill could have a meaningful impact on small businesses. And we have seen time and time again in Maryland and across the country that restrictive local laws result in lost revenue through border bleed sales, as consenting adults are driven across city, county, or state lines to purchase products that they want. We believe that this bill would have a negative impact on businesses in Baltimore City, and we would urge the committee to maintain the preemption on local authority on this matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kirk McCauley.
Vice Chair Crosby, members of the Economic Matters Committee. My name is Kurt McCauley. I represent WMDA service stations and convenience stores in the state of Maryland. We're opposed to HB 442 for many reasons. You have my written, so I'll be brief here. Retailers not only lose those sales to neighboring and bordering counties, they also lose all the sales that come along with them. People, they won't call our stores convenience stores for nothing. They want to come in and get everything they need, get their gas, and be on their way and not stop again for somewhere. So you not only lose a sale, you lose a customer. The state will lose tax revenue. There's no doubt, whether they ban menthol or different products, whatever they ban, it's going to be a hit for the state. And the city of Baltimore is going to lose. They're going to lose because this will not slow down tobacco use one bit. It will drive them to other areas. It will drive them to other counties. It'll drive them to other states. Not that a lot of people are already doing that. But the biggest part is it's going to drive them to illegal street sales. Illegal street sales in Baltimore are pretty prevalent right now. There's no enforcement on it. The county health department and the police department have the authority to enforce it, but it doesn't get done. Priorities are very low, and it's understandable. But the illegal street sales sends youth in places that didn't exist yesterday, but they'll exist after if this bill were to be enacted. More locations to buy where they don't check ID. They don't care how old you are. They don't check ID. And truthfully, they're going to get pretty dangerous because there's too much money in cigarettes not to have gangs get in and separate the neighborhoods and territories. So for all the reasons, we would like an unfavorable report on HB 442. And thank you, and you have my written.
Thank you. We'll go back to the first two witnesses. We'll start with Mr. Bariano. I see you've joined. Mr. Bariano, you're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
I got you, sir.
Thank you. I apologize. I'm not technologically savvy. I was before ENT committee testifying. I apologize. On behalf of the Maryland Association of Candy and Tobacco Wholesalers, we very strongly oppose this legislation. The reality of this legislation is to give local governments the authority to regulate the sale of tobacco products. And their regulation is going to be a ban. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not be naive and foolish. If you're going to ban tobacco and cigarette products, if at all, which is ridiculous, has to be done statewide. Obviously, you're going to have the problems that have been indicated by other witnesses. And you've got to realize whether you like it or not, cigarettes and all tobacco products are heavily taxed, and the revenues are calculated and utilized by the state legislature in a myriad of ways, funding programs and important endeavors. So you give the local governments the ability to interfere with your tax sources. That's bad government, very bad government. I was unable to listen to the proponents of this bill, but if any of them told you that initially the local governments had this authority and the court case took it away, they're absolutely wrong. Never in the history of the legislature and the process has
Mr. Bariano, I think you're having some internet issues.
just clarified and reaffirmed that fact that the state legislature has occupied the field and can only regulate the product. Regulation is to ban. That's what it's all about. You all are not naive legislators. I urge an unfavorable report. This is anti-state interest legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fred Parsons. Mr. Parsons, I can see you're off mute. Your camera is not turned on. I can see you though. Okay, Thomas Bryant.
Vice Chair Crosby and committee members, my name is Thomas Bryant, and I am the Executive Director of the National Association of Tobacco Outlets, which has numerous retail member stores located in Baltimore and Prince George's County. We urge you to oppose both HB 442 and HB 1341. The state of Maryland already licenses and regulates tobacco sales. However, these bills would allow Baltimore and Prince George's County to adopt more restrictive local regulations, which can include an outright prohibition on the sale of certain tobacco products. Even so, HB 442 raises another question of why would the state reserve regulatory authority over cigarette taxes and the issuance of licenses, but allow Baltimore to adopt more restrictive regulations? Then HB 1341 appears to be contradictory because the bill allows Prince George's County to limit the number of retail licenses, but the state reserves licensing authority to itself in HB 442. The restrictions adopted by cities and counties on legal tobacco products can be very severe, even though retailers are very compliant with state and federal laws. However, the differing restrictions adopted by local governments in other states put retailers at a competitive disadvantage to stores in adjacent localities. Our concerns that this legislation would allow Baltimore and Prince George's County to adopt restrictive and prohibitory ordinances to the detriment of local retailers. The impact of such ordinances is very real, but we have seen firsthand that local lawmakers can be indifferent to the concerns of retailers, the impact on their businesses, and their employees' jobs. The real problem, as identified by the FDA, is that up to 90% of underage youth obtain tobacco products from social sources, siblings, parents, and even giving money to strangers to buy tobacco for them. This bill does nothing to address the root cause of youth access to tobacco, and retailers are not the problem. For these reasons, we strongly believe that continued state-level uniform regulation is far better than conflicting local ordinances. Thank you for your time.
Gangs in Baltimore.
Delegate Impler, you're not on mute. Mike O'Halloran.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair,
Member of the House Economic Matters Committee. For the record, my name is Mike O'Halloran here today in opposition to House Bill 442 on behalf of MAPTA, whose members own and operate gas stations, convenience stores throughout Maryland, including Baltimore City. Look, it's well documented the negative impacts COVID has had on all Marylanders, their physical health and mental well-being, and not least our local economies. Our operators are still weathering this fragile recovery. The concern with House Bill 442 is the owners of these convenience stores located in the city will see less foot traffic in their stores because in all likelihood, the bill will lead to bans or other restrictions on these products. That puts them at a competitive disadvantage to their neighbors, not unlike the statewide or other local bills that you'll hear. I don't think anyone wants to see the creation of a black market. That, in all likelihood, would create more problems than what the proponents hope this bill would solve. I appreciate the committee's time and respectfully request an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Finney Helmuth.
Good afternoon. My name is Feeny Helmuth. I'm here today as the president of the Maryland Premium Cigar Retailers Association of Maryland. My family and I have owned and operated the Humidor Cigar Shop for the last 25 years. Throughout our journey, we've worked hard and taken risks to build our small business. We proudly provide our customers premium cigars, pipe tobacco, and accessories at a fair price. We value our employees, offering them health coverage at no cost, and we contribute to each of their retirement funds. I'm asking you to oppose House Bill 442, which will hurt our premium cigar retailers in Baltimore. This bill will allow conflicting rules and regulations to be set that could in turn be damaging to similar businesses in neighboring counties. During COVID-19, our county restrictions were not unified. For a time during the pandemic, our lounges in Baltimore County were closed, so our customers went to the neighboring jurisdictions with less restrictions to smoke their cigars indoors. This was a clear example of how the bill would jeopardize small retail businesses if approved. The different rules from one county to another made it difficult for all of us to manage. It's a real life example, proves that different regulations do not work. The approval of this bill will cause a major threat to the 30+ mom and pop businesses in Maryland, affecting our employees, our taxes, and our revenue stream. Our small businesses have survived through this horrible pandemic, and we cannot face another threat that would force us to close our doors. This bill is bad for small retailers, and I urge the committee to oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Bowl.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Matthew Boley of Rifkin Weiner Livingston here on behalf of the Maryland Premium Cigar Retailers Association, which includes approximately 35 brick and mortar, mom and pop premium cigar and pipe tobacco retailers. We are here today in opposition to HB 442. HB 442 would enable Baltimore to regulate tobacco products at the local level, which would have the effect of driving business across the city line into neighboring jurisdictions, forcing people to move further and spend more time to obtain the products that they desire. We oppose a patchwork approach to regulation of tobacco products. And as we have seen during the pandemic, differing regulations from one locality to another creates confusion for businesses, consumers, and regulators. This legislative term, the Maryland General Assembly has taken the position that taxation authority on tobacco products should continue to lie entirely within the state's purview. And we support this position and ask that the regulatory system for tobacco also continue to lie within the state's exclusive authority. Finally, as it pertains specifically to premium cigars and pipe tobacco, youth are not allowed in premium cigar stores. These stores do not sell the products that they want. As a result, we do not believe we should be included in this legislation, and we ask for an unfavorable report.
Thank you. Scott Weber.
Chair Crosby and distinguished members of the Economic Affairs Committee, Scott Weber, founder of the Vaping Awareness and Public Education Society. We're a nonprofit public health advocacy organization that's spearheading the fight to break cigarette addiction. We have an emphasis on vaping as being the most effective harm reduction solution to actually get smokers to reduce or quit smoking. My testimony today, though, is going to focus on the bill language directly. There are several terms which are completely unworkable and really cannot be put into law because it will create essentially legalistic anarchy. I'm going to focus on the word stringent. For example, there is no definition of stringent anywhere within the context of tobacco regulation or in Maryland law. Stringent actually means that it's more tightly constricted. But as we've seen, the Altedas decision actually was a result of not having packaging that was large enough. They said you have to have bigger packaging. But if you look at the Michael Bloomberg and New York City local laws about sodas, the fact was things are too big, it has to be smaller. So does more stringent mean bigger, smaller, more frequent, hours, more hours, less hours? It's completely undefined. And anytime you have law that is completely undefined, it becomes anarchy. I would also further point out the idea of stringent can only be in adherence to law. You cannot get, if you're less stringent than the current law, that's illegal. If you're more stringent than the current law, that's illegal because it doesn't meet the letter of the law. So the fact concept of being stringent can only come into absolute conformity of 100% letter of the law, which without a definition makes it impossible. The same thing is resolved within the 1341 language, where it does say that whether the localities are allowed to do any other requirement established by the locality. When you get to something that says any other regulation that is not defined, you create anarchy. It needs to be more tightly defined so that at least the citizens understand what the law is going to refer to. I ask for an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we'll go back one last time to Fred Parsons. Mr. Parsons, I see you went out of the room and then came back in. Your video is on, but it's not showing anything. Now you're off mute. I can't hear you, sir. All right, hearing nothing. That concludes the hearing for House Bill 442. We'll now go to Delegate Tolles on House Bill 1341. Delegate Tolles, are you with us and ready to go?
You're muted, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Valderrama. All right, let me start again. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of ECM. I am Karen Tolles, delegate for District 25 and representing the chair of Prince George's County, Delegation Chair Nick Charles, who is also my district mate. I'm asking for the committee support, which will be amended for Bill HB 1341. And I also understand that the majority that Prince George's County is the most, sorry, let me back up. Please understand that Prince George's County is the most populous and largest majority minority county in the state of Maryland. We are experiencing a major issue with the proliferation of pop-up tobacco shops in Prince George's County. We are in need of serious regulatory control. The tobacco retailer shops are taking over the county. On one street alone in my community, we have over 15 tobacco retailer shops in Prince George's County. These are unique shops that are using convenience stores like grocery stores, and even claiming to sell wireless products. But in fact, they are operating tobacco shops as an ancillary use. I should add that the bill in your committee is not in the posture as you see it. This is not a tobacco issue. This is not a tobacco issue. This is a licensing issue. And here are some of the changes that we are proposing. On the first line, we'll be totally stricken of electronic smoking devices. We also amending it to say that the authority to regulate the sale and distribution of other tobacco products provided under this section, which is section B, does not apply to the sale and distribution of tobacco shops that are premium tobacco retailers with a smoking lounge, like the tobacco shops that you would see if you want to smoke a cigar. Those are not in part of this bill. And we're just waiting for a size dimension for that so we can, we can make sure that they are covered. And it will not impact gas stations in Prince George's County because we don't have a problem if you want to sell tobacco in the gas station. It's the issue of the shops that are popping up all over the county. Also, we are saying that our department and enforcement retailers will have the ability to certify these tobacco shops to be in existence, and the clerk of the circuit court shall issue the permits once it's signed off by DPI, and the clerk of the court already issued retailer license. This is just in a way to have more control over who gets these licenses. And also we are limiting the mile radius. That's a major issue because you should not have one store the same next to each other. And finally, I want to say we are adding a fine. I want to say that I had a great conversation with Alcohol Tobacco Commission, who offered some amendments. This will not impact what they do. And again, I want to thank the retailers, the Premium Retailers Association, for their conversation as well, and helping to offer some amendments. This is a criminal issue in Prince George's County. And I want to say, again, this is not a tobacco. I think it's very telling that these are two minority counties coming to this committee asking for something to be done. For those that are opposing this bill, I ask you, what will you continue to allow in Black communities? This is an example of modern day redlining. I would like to close by reading just quick. I don't know how much time I have left because I didn't hit the 2-minute buttons. And this is my first time testifying, so hopefully I'll get some grace.
You're doing great. Delegate Tolles, you take your time. So
okay.
You don't have a 2-minute.
Oh, wonderful. It's different in judiciary. But I just want to say, this is just an issue in minority communities. Just the proliferation, of these shops, one next to the other without any regulation. And this simply gives the clerk the ability to say, okay, you have one here, you don't need another one next door. And so I am asking for this committee to hold this bill until we can have the county delegation take this up as well, which will be this week. And so quickly, this is what our community is experiencing in Prince George's County. This is a letter and a testimony from a constituent who says that these stores are not supplying healthy products for our residents to purchase, especially kids and seniors. There's all type of tobacco and drug paraphernalia displayed openly in these stores, only to increase the curiosity about kids. They are listed as convenience stores, but their main product is tobacco, and about 70% of the stores sell tobacco products. This type of business brings crime and loitering, which we've seen a robbery happen just last week in one of these stores. The calls for service has dramatically increased. And so I'm asking again for this committee to look at how minority communities have been impacted with little regulation of these stores. Again, this is an issue of licensing and not tobacco. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will close. Thank you. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you. We'll go to favorable with amendments. Matt Boley.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Matthew Boley of Rifkin Weiner Livingston here on behalf of the Premium Cigar Retailers Association of Maryland, which includes approximately 35 brick and mortar mom and pop retailers. We are here today as favorable with amendment on HB 1341. Based on my conversation with the bill sponsor, I believe there is a shared goal and intent here. It is my understanding that this legislation is not targeting our narrow sector of the market, premium cigar and pipe tobacco retailers. And as a result, we are working with the sponsor to exempt our members from this legislation. I don't think we have the language just yet to achieve this exemption, but I will continue to work with the sponsor to achieve this shared goal. I very much appreciate the sentiment and willingness to engage with us on this legislation. I look forward to working out this language. With that, I urge this committee to adopt an amendment that will exempt our premium cigar and pipe tobacco retailers.
Thank you. We'll go to unfavorable. Bruce Bariano. Mr. Bariano, I can see you in here. Your camera is on.
Thank you.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
I got you. If you get a
Thank
lamp,
you.
you probably
Sorry
see
for
better.
the delay. Sorry for the delay, Mr. Vice Chairman. Again, Bruce Bariano on behalf of the Maryland Association of Cigar and Tobacco, Candy and Tobacco Wholesalers. The only good thing about this bill is the sponsor of the bill, who I'm extremely fond of. But this bill is once again, it's very simple. You can take all the rhetoric and all the issues and all the arguments aside. What this bill will do will restrict and ban through regulation in Prince George's County the sale of a lawful product that is taxed and regulated and licensed at the state level. The licenses that the clerks of Prince George's County give out for these products are the state tobacco licenses. It's a function. So giving the clerk this unfettered authority interferes with the state licensure system, and the extent to which you restrict, as this bill does, the sale of tobacco products, you are interfering with the collection of taxes that are relied upon by you legislators and the entire state government. Sincerely, you have a responsibility as state legislators to protect the sources of revenue generation for the state of Maryland. You do. And one of that is the heavily taxed tobacco cigarette products. And, taking certain people out of this bill, the premium people, you make it an economic issue. Oh, the people that can't afford premium products, they're going to be regulated and banned and have to go to another county. But the good old boys and girls that have the premium cigars that can afford it, they're going to be left alone. That's discrimination. I urge an unfavorable report of this bill. If there are problems in Prince George's County, they can be dealt with and rectified in any other way. But don't interfere, please, with the state's revenue source. It's an obligation. Thank you very much. Urge an unfavorable report.
Thank you so much. Fred Parsons, I can hear you, sir. I just need you to turn your camera on.
I have my mic on now. Can you hear me?
I got you. Just need you to turn your camera on for testimony.
Okay.
There you go.
I apologize for the earlier testimony, not being able to get across, but everybody did a very good job as far as I'm concerned. My name is Fred Parsons. I'm a co-owner of the George Falter Company in Baltimore, Maryland. We are unfavorable support to this law change for local laws. The state of Maryland already controls all of these aspects. I'm looking out for the behalf of our retailers that we service, 3,600 plus retailers in the state of Maryland and surrounding states. Where local laws take prominence over state laws, there creates an awful lot of confusion as to how to go to retail, how to display your products, what's legal in what store may not be legal in the store two blocks away. This just creates a lot of confusion. On one of the other bills, one of the delegates said that he feels that you all have the authority to pass this. Just because you have the authority to pass a bill doesn't make it smart to do so. I know Bruce said that the state laws that were passed on the out of this case said that the state has the preeminent authority, and I agree with that. My problem is trying to help our retailers sell a legal product in a proper fashion to adult consumers. And with all of the taxes that have been added over the years to the products that originate from a plant that cost about $4 a pound and now sell for $100 a carton on the street, it's created an awful impact at retail. And I would hope that it would be an unfavorable report.
Thank you, sir. Sarah Price.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members of the committee. Again, for the record, my name is Sarah Price, here on behalf of the Maryland Retailers Association. I'd like to thank the sponsor for explaining the amendments that you expect to come out on the bill. It is good to know that the bill that I'm testifying on is not necessarily what the ultimate legislation is going to look like. So I do look forward to being able to see the later version of the bill. I do still want to share that we do ultimately have concerns about the overarching impact of zoning and licensing changes like this. A lot of consenting adults do depend on vaping products as alternative cessation methods for nicotine addiction. And statistics have shown that banning or otherwise restricting access to these products can result in those sales just turning straight back to traditional nicotine tobacco products like combustible cigarettes. So if the ultimate goal is to try to limit people's usage of any type of tobacco or type of cigarettes, we do think that restrictive zoning isn't necessarily going to achieve those goals in the way that you would anticipate. And so they can have not only a negative impact on the local businesses, but also on consenting adults who wish to legally use these products. But again, I do understand that the bill that we might be looking at in a week isn't the one that we have right now. So again, I do look forward to being able to look at those changes and to review those with our members. But as the bill is in front of us right now, we would urge an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Kirk McCauley.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Wilson and members of the committee. Second time, my name's Kirk McCauley. I represent WMDA service station convenience stores in Maryland. It is good to hear that the bill is looking at some amendments, and I'll be happy to look at them when we get them. But for right now, I got to go with what we got. And let me say first, my comments only apply to service station and convenience stores. That's who I represent. The bill as written applies existing licenses could be taken away from people. They talk about density restrictions in a given census tract. What the heck's that mean? I mean, the bill is very confusing as written. Hopefully, as Delegate Toll said, it's going to get straightened out, and we'll take a look at it then. But it takes away sales from my convenience store and service station has been in the neighborhood for many years. And sometimes the only place that is open for a consumer to go in and pick up a pack of cigarettes or a quart of milk or coffee. So the bill as written is not good at all. It just, it's very confusing. I had a convenience store owner call me the other day and say, what's with this bill? I mean, does it affect me? I had to tell him I didn't know whether it affected him or not. I don't know what density is in, there's just too much up in the air about this bill. And I'm be happy to look at it, and Delegate Coles gets it all fixed up and amended up. It might be a different bill, but for right now, I urge an unfavorable report for HB 1341. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas Bryant. Mr. Bryant. Oh, I do not see him. Michael Halloran. Mike, you're on mute. Mike, you're on mute, Mike. You're doing a great job, but you're on mute.
Appreciate it, Mr. Vice Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, Mike O'Halloran here today in opposition to House Bill 1341 as it's presented before you. On behalf of MAPTA, whose members own and operate gas station and convenience stores throughout Maryland, including Prince George's County. Our members are concerned with what's in front of the committee today. Both current C-store operators and those looking to expand their footprint. For existing convenience store operators, I refer you to the fiscal note, which reads in part, to the extent that existing licenses exceed the bill's density restriction in a given census tract and or otherwise violate the bill's restrictions on licensure, it is assumed that these licensed businesses are potentially prohibited from continuing to operate or may be subject to license suspension, revocation, or other disciplinary action. So, for future operators who hope to open a convenience store in Prince George's County, they in all likelihood will not be able to do so because they'll be restricted from offering these products, which, as you've heard from my colleagues, consenting adults want to buy, purchase, and use. So I appreciate and look forward to the bill sponsors' amendments to get a look at those and see how we can participate in this process. But until then, we do respectfully request an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll call Thomas Bryant one more time. I do not see him, though, in the weight room. I know he testified on the previous bill. All right, that concludes the witnesses for this bill, and that concludes the bill hearings for today. Thank you, everybody, and have a great afternoon.
I'm sorry, what does MAPTA stand for, Mr. Chair? I didn't get that. And they don't have testimony.
Mike is with small business, so I can get you that information.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'll call him right now.